I had a dream and Country Day helped me make that dream come true. Sit back and relax as I share my journey with you. It took some time and some research, and before I knew it, I received the money and I was on my way. Even from the airplane, I could tell what everyone had said was true. This is big sky country. The views were amazing from the start. My first stop was the Track Education Center. This center is owned and operated by Jim Halfpenny, who is an avid educator and researcher in Yellowstone National Park. My first wildlife sighting included a male pronghorn and a female elk and her calf. Jim pointed them out as we drove to get a map of Yellowstone. I was finally here, and boy was I excited. My first research activity was wolf watching at 5 o'clock the next morning. Unfortunately, I didn't see any wolves that morning, but I did see lots of bison. Did you know that bison calves have bright orange fur when they're born? Wolves or no wolves, the scenery was spectacular. Time for more wolf watching. Did you know that from 1995 to 1997, 41 gray wolves were reintroduced to Yellowstone National Park? Currently, there are 10 gray wolf packs in the park and over 100 wolves. Check out this beautiful lake. I learned about trout while I was hiking here. I observed the native species of cutthroat trout in this lake, and I was able to see the river where they go to lay their eggs. My friend Kathy taught me all about the wildflowers all around the lake. Of course, I was taking notes. Guess what? Kathy was a biology teacher for 36 years. The next day, I went for an awesome horseback ride through Yellowstone. We traveled nearly 10 miles. What a great way to see the landscape. After my ride, I was definitely ready to do some sitting and eating like this young buck elk. The next morning, I was up at 5 a.m. for wolf watching again. I finally saw 11 wolves. Did you know that the spot where the juveniles care for the pups is called the Rendezvous? It was finally time to move into my bunk at the Lamar Buffalo Ranch for my classes with the Yellowstone Association Institute. The entire campus is run on solar. Here's my view from my cabin in the morning. The bison were everywhere. If you're wondering if they're bison or buffalo, the answer is they're both. Bison is just the more scientific term. Dr. Harold Picton and Mr. Jim Gary were our instructors for this course. Boy, did they know a lot about bison. Our lectures were held in the classroom, and they contained lots of information about the history of bison as well as the biology and the current conservation. We also spent a lot of time out in the field observing the bison behavior. This time of year was the rut, which is their breeding season, so they were very active. We also had a bison in our class. His name was Ernie. Did you know that the sound a bull bison makes is called a rumble? From bison jumps to black bears, our field trips were always full of excitement. Some quick facts about bison. The fluffy hair on top of the bull's head is called his pompadour. The bigger his pompadour is, the older and wiser he is. After my 3-day bison class, I met up with JG and the girls. Of course, we had to go horseback riding. Then we drove through the Beartooth Pass. We were up over 10,000 feet, and yes, that is snow on the ground. We felt like we were on top of the world. Then I went back to Lamar for my seminar about badgers, taught by Jim Halfpenny. He runs one of the largest forensic analysis programs called Track Scene Investigation. You need to know a lot about tracking to study badgers because they are very elusive. They are carnivores that eat ground squirrels, and they need 1 ground squirrel per day to survive. During our lunch break, we had a visitor. After a field trip out searching for badgers, which we didn't find any, we learned how to make plaster casts of tracks. The next day, I took the girls and JG participated in a seminar about wolverine and lynx taught by Jim. They're 2 elusive carnivores that live in Yellowstone. And in true JG fashion, she had a lot of fun while she was learning. Her group took a field trip to this wolverine trap that's been used by scientists for the past 10 years. Here are the tracks that we both made and brought back with us to the science lab. After our seminars, we headed to our second national park, Glacier. We took an amazing hike up to Avalanche Lake. And look who we found cooling off on the edge of the lake and foraging in the berries, a black bear. Again, we went for a lovely horseback ride to see the landscape. We went about 5 miles that day. Yes, this is a picture that I took in the evening at Glacier National Park. Nothing like a morning swim at Flathead Lake on our way out of Glacier, and then some cherry picking. And And then we ended up at the Lewis and Clark Caverns. This was definitely out of my comfort zone. It took us about 2 hours to journey into the mountain and back out again. Can you imagine in the late 1800s it used to take over 24 hours to complete the trip? Here's the view from our Big Sky condo. That's Lone Mountain in the background. We went hiking in the rain and practiced our wildflower identification. We did some recreational paddleboarding and canoeing on Lebowski Lake, and of course we just enjoyed the view as much as possible. And we were off to another big hike, Lava Lake. Here was the view when we got to the top. Lava Lake is over 386 acres, and it is beautiful. We did some journaling, and of course the girls went swimming. Our trip wouldn't have been complete without a beautiful rainbow. Another hike we took in Big Sky was up to Osel Falls. The falls are over 100 feet tall and is thought to be named after the water ouzel, or the American dipper, which is a type of bird that lives near streams. Back to Yellowstone. We went to the Old Faithful Geyser on our way to Idaho. Then we arrived in our third national park, Grand Teton. We stopped at Lewis Lake, which literally looked like the ocean. It was that big. Yes, that is snow on the top of the Tetons. We met up with a friend who took us fly fishing. This was where our hike began. We learned a lot from JG's friend King about fly fishing and the trout habitat. Here's a beautiful cutthroat that King caught. Then we had an unexpected wildlife encounter. Can you tell what we saw? How about now? It was a juvenile beaver. He was munching away on some twigs. Beavers are some of the largest rodents, and they're herbivores. They have naturally oily skin, which actually makes their fur waterproof so they don't get cold. We kept driving through Idaho. We got to see some beautiful farmland. We made a stop at Mesa Falls while we were traveling on the Teton Scenic Byway. The falls are over 114 feet tall. While my experience was priceless, here are some numbers from my trip. 3 seminars, 16 mammal sightings, 28 bird species, 3 states, 3 national parks, and 5 horseback rides. It all starts with a dream.